When life throws you a curveball, how are you going to handle adversity? Welcome to the Fearless Mindset Podcast, where you're about to go on a journey as I interview security, business, and entertainment leaders on what it takes to stay fearless. I'm your host, Mark Ludlow, and enjoy today's episode. Interesting you brought the scientific part and the biology of it all. That makes total sense from a scientific approach. And for the folks listening, I have Ron Owens with the Fame Marketing on from Tulsa, Oklahoma. Ron and I are actually business partners with Frank Mir and the Ronin Training System. And we do other business together as well. And Ron, his day job is marketing, and he's the master scientist. I call him the master scientist when it comes to marketing. And so that's who we're talking to right now. And he's an Army veteran. So kudos to Ron, and he runs a security firm out there with a big team, and you can find him on LinkedIn as well. And if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to us, hit that like button for the algorithms, and then all the platforms out there, the platform, the podcasts, give us a 5-star rating and help us with the algorithm there. So I just want to reintroduce the audience to you, Ron, and let them know who you are.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
You got it. Being a professional, should you spend too much time on Instagram? Because my team does some posts on Instagram. We just don't get any traction. And I talked to my teams like, well, maybe if I was the Kardashians, maybe if I was Paris Hilton or Donald Trump, maybe I get some traction. But the barometer doesn't move for me. I'm just a normal guy on Instagram with the Business Profile podcast. What is your advice to those folks who like, what the heck's going on with the algorithm? I'm not getting any views.
Well, you got to look at where your audience is participating. So the last contract you got, who did you talk to get it? The HR director, the CEO, the COO?
Yep.
You think they're on Instagram? I'm not.
No.
Yeah. So for, like I said, for awareness, for some brand recognition, maybe somebody can look on there and say, oh, that's cool. That's pretty. Yeah, they're a real company. But as far as getting a lead or closing business, that's not where your audience, if you're doing private security, particularly at a high level, that's not where they live. You would actually be probably more successful at sending direct mail pieces to the HR director or the CFO or COO of the corporations within a 30 to 50 mile radius of your, within your license area, and have a compelling, kind of headline or subject line in it to gather them together, those companies, and come in and maybe give them some free training on something that they care about. Water facilities care. You talk about workplace violence, put together a training on workplace violence, invite your local businesses to it, and start building a brand like that. Now, you could take pictures of that and put it on your Instagram. You could take video of that and put that on your Facebook. You could put that on your YouTube, and it might get some traction. But you probably get more traction by contacting those folks, putting them in a room, helping them understand not only who you are and what you do, but if you do just that, that makes you an asshole, because now I'm asking for your business and I'm giving you something. But now I'm offering you some training on workplace violence, de-escalation, something, active shooters is way too long. Something you can do in 45 minutes that says, hey, that was useful. I can use this. I know what to do. The bottom line is, and most of it is, you need a security professional to help you manage this. Don't screw it up, But people would appreciate that. And then when they have a problem, or there is a scenario that they're not sure how to negotiate, you're more likely to get that call than the guy they don't know that hasn't helped them.
Total sense. Common sense. Yeah. What do you do leadership training too as well? The audience probably doesn't know that about you. And you've had some companies, I won't mention them on the podcast, but some very well-known companies nationwide that had hired you to be a leadership consultant. What do you see as failures in companies right now in leadership? What are you seeing out there, people that hire you as a consultant in that space?
I think the biggest concern I have, and I think the biggest opportunity companies have, and we all have, comes in the form of feedback. I think right now, and I think post-pandemic, it's been worse. And I think as the younger group has been in the workforce for a while, and have some anxiety issues and some conflict issues and those types of things, and the I think propensity to be more positive, and if you are critical of something, it being viewed as being negative. Because we don't want trouble in our life, and nobody wants to be a problem, and nobody wants to get canceled, we're struggling with feedback. And it's real hard for us to make corrections and to negotiate and navigate situations, particularly when it comes to projects and the outcomes of those projects. When we can't provide feedback to the people that are participating, we're not good at taking feedback from people. And I don't know how an organization is going to ever successfully move the ball across the goal line without making those on-the-spot corrections and having that information and that learning that takes place as you're moving from point A to B, because people aren't talking, because nobody wants to offend anybody. Nobody wants to lose their job. Nobody wants to be that person. So we're all going, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. And then we got our anxiety building up because we know it's not fine. And I think the problem is that we're not comfortable giving feedback to each other. And some of us don't even know how to take feedback. And I think most organizations, I'm convinced, would be really well served to start to work in those areas, because I think communication is 90% of the problem in almost every small group. Whenever a small group is not functioning properly, not high performing, it usually has to do with communication in the group. At the foundation of that is feedback. There's more placating than there is real authentic conversation. And somebody's going to have a backbone where they probably just have a wishbone, so.
The backbone versus the wishbone.
I wish this was not that way. Well, you keep wishing the backbone to say something to somebody that can do something. And we don't do that very well right now, and it's getting worse. And I think even as a CMO working with companies, advising them, they've got to be willing to take the feedback. If your baby's ugly, it's ugly, and you've got to have someone that'll tell you. It doesn't mean your baby's worthless. It just means they're not going to be in a pageant. But they could be but they could be good at something else. And so we have to deal with the truth. We have to deal with data. The data's got to drive the decision, and not deal with our biases or our false impressions of things. We have blind spots with things, and you've got to have some trusted counsel in your life to give you the feedback that you need to make those improvements. And I see a lot of money and time wasted, and I see people fail when the solutions could be handled if we could just have the courage to give each other some feedback and have the stamina or resilience to take some feedback and not get triggered over it.
There you go, folks. There's advice from Ron Owens on leadership. Yeah, I think that's going to be a big issue here this year with people trying to figure out the budgets, inflation, people knowing what to spend money in, inflation's cutting in the bottom line. And then I like your idea of fractional CMO ownership.
Yeah. Brilliant
idea. I think small business to survive, they have to have somebody that's an expert in that world. And like you said, the message is not getting out clearly, and they're blowing money, throwing mud on the wall with hopefully this social media person makes something stick. Are they really investing in their company, or is it just going down the toilet? And I think the CMO fractional ownership piece is going to be maybe a new business model. Or has it been a model for, like you said, consultants and lawyers do it all the time?
Yeah, it's not new because you've got other professionals that have done it. I think in the marketing space, it's not done as much. And I think with all of the new businesses that have come up and one thing about the younger generation is they do want it. They're very entrepreneurial. They want to work for themselves. They want to build something for themselves. The thing is recognizing where your expertise is not. And it's not that you can't learn it, but one thing that you recognize early in business, and I was taught this as a young man, you want to surround yourself with as many professionals in every aspect of business as you can, because it's a safeguard. It's a safety measure. You can learn it all yourself, but life is really too short to make all the mistakes yourself. Learn from somebody else's experience and start off ahead of the game from where someone else started off. I've been doing this, and I've been in the marketing space for, I started in 2000, it's 24. So I've got 24 years of experience doing this. Why? And I'm going to learn and continue to learn more because things are changing. But why start off? Don't start off back where I was in 2000. Let's start off in 2024 and go forward. You don't want to start off behind the 8 ball unnecessarily. So bringing people into your business to help you at least understand that you've got a good plan to start with, that you've got a shot. And it's like build a house without an architect. You don't just start putting up frames and nailing things together. You start with an architectural design and plan. You wouldn't build a house without a plan. Don't build your business without a plan. Don't spend money in advertising without a plan.
In your leadership consulting stuff that you do on the side, where have you seen the weakness in leadership, like the CEO or the chairman or the president? Where do they get in their own way and they have failures?
Oh, man. Well, as one of those people,
that's another
I'm not going to talk about any of those individuals. I'm going to talk about things that I struggle with. And I think that we struggle with delegation and building teams. I think because we're responsible and there's so much going on, you have to be able to build a team. I think people either micromanage too much or they delegate too much. And finding a balance that says, hey, I need a team that I could trust to do things, but the responsibility is still mine. It's non-transferable. So I have to put some control measures in place to supervise and follow up, kind of a trust but verify kind of thing. And I think people lack those systems. They're hoping when they should be inspecting, and then they got their hands on things that somebody else needs to probably be doing. And I struggle in that area. When I see a lot of corporations that we work with, those are the things that I see people that are difficult to find a good balance and work through those things. Because ultimately, you've got to ask yourself as CEO, if I get hit by a car, have a heart attack, or decide to walk away from this thing, what's going to happen? Who's going to do these things that I'm doing? And if you don't have a name in mind, if there's not a face that pops up, you probably need to get working on that plan, because there will be a time when you're not able to be there and something happens and everything's in danger at that point. And you owe that as a leader to your team. Their situation should not be that vulnerable to your inability to make good decisions for their future. So it's a responsibility to do that. And if people don't realize that, that's one thing I would like them to consider. Consider the responsibility of having a better plan when it comes to that leadership portion of it.
Planning is critical. Business planning is absolutely. Yeah, being a Marine myself, I have to delegate. I think, like you said, I over-delegate. Like, I'll let Eric handle that. Mark can handle that. Or my director of finance, Tom Ware, he's former Goodwill CFO. Numbers guy, let him handle it. But you don't want to overwhelm him. And my problem with being a owner of a company, sometimes you start dreaming and visioning. You cast that vision and you cast that dream of where you want to take your company. And you have so much that you use the creative uses, and you tell your team, hey, let's do this in 5 years. But we got this going on right now. What are you talking about? We have chaos going on right now. We got to deal with that. And so I think being a leader, you have to mentor them and you have to build them up to realize, hey, this is temporary here, but this is the future now. Future in 5 years. And that, do you find yourself thinking that way too? Is that something that creates confusion within the team by thinking that way?
No, I think you have to provide a vision for the future if people won't invest. And I think that's where a lot of leaders fail. They're very task oriented and they're looking at right now today and they're dig the hole, dig the hole, dig the hole. Well, why are we digging the hole? How deep is the hole going to be? Are we digging the hole in the right place? Do we need more holes? I mean, that's where the vision for the future comes in, and you go, well, do we even have the right shovel to dig the hole? Those those are the questions that vision helps.
Or do we have the right? We have the right fit.
Yeah,
the team.
yeah. Do I even have the right person on the shovel? Should this person be holding the light? Because it's dark. But you look at these things. I think honestly that you bring up a really interesting question when you talk about that. Being a kind of I first entered the workplace. After went to Oklahoma State, graduated in '90. Entered the workforce in '90. And one thing that was really big among corporations that isn't as big as it used to be is development. Personal development, business development. Everybody wants to develop leads and develop business and develop revenue, but I don't see companies investing in their teams like they used to. I remember in my first job, I was working in pharmaceutical in sales. And I remember when 7 Habits of Highly Effective People came out and having to read that book. I didn't buy that book. My supervisor gave it to me and said, you need to read this book. And then we're going to talk about it in meetings sometimes. And they're going to give you the Dale Carnegie books and all these things and go into seminars and go into in-services and doing things to make you better and develop you professionally. I don't see as much of that happening right now with corporations as budgets get pinched. And I think sometimes because shareholders own businesses and they're trying to make these things as profitable on paper as possible, I think those are the things that got cannibalized in that and got cut because they're not immediate value to the bottom line. Their top line revenue, their top line expenses that you really don't see the value of it until down the road. And so I think that's left our workforce, our labor force, to develop themselves. I don't know that I would know all the things I know if working at Clear Channel and working at Ron Palong Roar and the corporate, even in the military, all the information, all the leadership techniques, philosophy, all the training that was poured into me created the person that I am. And I continue to seek knowledge because of it, because I value development. But that was developed. I mean, I entered the workforce at 22 years old. And that desire and that habit was developed during that time. And I think that might be part of the missing piece, that people don't work in the personal development of their team members as much as they should, investing in them. And so people are like, well, the company doesn't invest in me. Well, why don't I invest in the company? Those companies I worked for, I was pretty loyal to. I mean, I loved them, but I think it's because they invested in me and made me better. And they got more out of me because I was a better team member. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Invest in your team. Like, for example, I did a beta test with Steve Pellerin. I'm like, we need to highlight our team. So I said, hey, Steve. He pushed back because he didn't want the attention. We're doing a post on you and your background. Oh, I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that. I'm not sure what it was. It may be a mental block. His wife said, you better put your ass on the profile on LinkedIn. And says, okay, my wife said, go ahead and do it. I better do it. He goes to OnTick. That one post we did had 3,500 impressions in it with under a week. And then he goes, holy cow. I didn't know I had so many connections that cared. And his self-esteem shot up through the roof. Yeah. You have to pour in your people. You have to pour belief in your people. You have to identify this is a strength they don't see in themselves. Edify, lift up, military type strategies. And I don't see that happening in the big companies anymore. They want them to produce like a beast, but they don't want to reward them. And congrats on Steve on his promotion within the company. And you have to give people a chance to jump and pull that parachute, see how far they can jump. And I think we live in a culture of people don't want to make mistakes right now. They're afraid of what people will think. And I think we're hypersensitive, not specifically on Steve Pellerin, but I think just in general case. But there are people that have so much skill sets that they're afraid to talk about their talent like you have, and they're afraid to tell their story to the world.
Well, what people are pretty critical. I mean, there's people that'll go, who does that guy think he is? And I don't think I'm anybody except somebody trying to help. But, there's sometimes when, that is a factor and there's a risk that you take. You took a risk when you started a podcast and, there were some people that was like, who do you think he is? What is he doing? But you got to do what you need to do. And those people, it's always amazed me. It makes me laugh that people, they criticize people for doing stuff or using people that aren't doing stuff. So I really just learned how to kind of disregard that and go, well, the only reason you're worried about what I'm doing because you don't have enough to do yourself. So go ahead. But, yeah.
Ignore.
But I do think that you do have to support people emotionally. One of the things that I think helps an organization culturally is if you can create a learning environment, a learning culture. In a learning culture, people have to be safe making mistakes. It doesn't mean that there's no accountability because you got to have accountability. There's consequences. But if you're doing things and you're trying to learn and you make a mistake, you still learn something from the mistake. You've got to be in a culture where that is valued and not punished so harshly that you don't do anything at all. And I see organizations, and this goes into marketing and advertising sometimes. People are so afraid to make a mistake and not take a risk because the consequences are so tragic that nothing happens. So we just don't do anything. And nothing moves forward, and opportunity is missed, and that's just un-American. I mean, how was this country founded? On taking risk. The night of Valley Forge, that was a risk. Do you know how much ammo they had per guy when they crossed the Delaware?
I have no idea.
6 bullets each. Now that's leadership. So now it's Christmas Eve. It's a snowstorm, and we're in a boat with 6 bullets about to go take this fort. That's leadership.
And that's the picture with Washington in the boat, right? Going across
Everybody's got 6 bullets each. Now, the goal was, hey, there's plenty of bullets there when we get there. If we kill that guy, take his bullets. And that's how it kind of worked. So, there'll be plenty laying around if you need them. But that's really what's hardwired into, I think, the American DNA. We're the guys, we take risks. We're courageous. We're Americans, not Americans. We're the guys that'll go kill you on Christmas Eve with 6 bullets in a snowstorm because we want to be a country. Like, put it all out there and go do something. But you got to create a culture that people feel like that's going to be supported and celebrated if we win, and you're not going to set me on fire if we lose. Otherwise, people won't
We are think about this. We are the country of hope. We are the country of freedom. We are the country of inspiration. Why? I can prove it. We have 10 million illegal aliens that cross the border of the U.S. and Mexico. That's how I can prove it. We are still the light on we are still that light in the dark place. No matter what our
problems are, as I travel, there's no place like home, and it's worth defending. No doubt.
Nope. Yeah. And that, being an American patriot veteran, we live in the greatest country in the world. And I think my word of advice to the audience is don't let politics discourage you. Don't let the media discourage you mentally, get in your mind thinking that we're a piece of crap country. We're the best country in the world still today.
Absolutely. Unequivocally.
And so, I'm proud to be an American, and I know that our best days are ahead, regardless of who's president. At least we have election cycles. Right. Look at Putin over there. He's president for 20 years. You look at Jing over there in China. He's going to be their president until he dies. We have election cycles. We have
at least democracy. If you lose, they're not going to throw you out of a helicopter.
Oh my God!
That happens in Venezuela, Chile. That happens in Chile. There's a guy. Pinochet was a guy in Chile, and he would if you in the election, if you were his adversary and he won, take you for a ride in a helicopter and chunk you out. That was your prize for losing. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Crazy. Any parting words to the audience?
No, be an American, not an American. If you congratulations to you if you're in the workplace trying to contribute to society in a positive way. If you need some help or you need some advice, I love to help people. Sometimes we'll be able to do business together. Sometimes we can't. It doesn't matter. It's really all about us just pursuing happiness. in the American way, lawfully, in our communities and making them better. And I love to be part of your story if it makes sense.
And for the audience, we will. What's the best way to reach you, Ron? Your email,
LinkedIn. Hit me up. Hit me up on Facebook.
Okay.
My email's out there. I literally am the easiest person to get a hold of in the world. As far as I've got more contact information on the internet than should be. It's probably unwise, honestly, but I'm not afraid, so we're good.
Yeah, word of advice: do not call his phone. If he doesn't know you, he won't.
Leave a text message first to tell me who you are. Yeah, these scam calls. I'm going to tell you what I won't tell you to do advertising wise. Don't buy robocalls. Nobody's answering those phones. Delete.
Yeah, that's good advice right there. So yeah, my podcast team will put Ron's contact information in the podcast file in the description when we upload it, so you guys will have access to that as well. And again, please follow us on all the podcast platforms. Give us a rating of some sort. And YouTube, we love subscribers. I think we just hit 400 subscribers on YouTube finally, and we just hit 26,000 downloads.
Outstanding.
So we're just growing as we grow. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, folks. Thanks, Ron, for coming on and sharing your expertise on marketing and the CMO business practice.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. And you're the best. I appreciate it greatly.
You got it. Anytime. I'm there with my friends. It's always an invite. All right, folks. We'll see you on the next podcast. Thanks for tuning in.